Okay, now we're recording you taking pictures of the screen.
Yes. For all the people.
For everyone that doesn't get to see the pre-show or us read lines so that Matt can have them for other things.
It's a magical Christmas here in the Pull List podcast.
Ah.
All our bells jingle. All our jollies are holly.
Hi-oh.
Hi-oh.
All right. Give Matt some video and or audio gold.
Okie dokie. Greetings, true believers. This is Hector from the Pull List podcast and Faith and Fandom, wishing you a very nerdy Christmas.
Aw. He did
Boom. I did it in absolutely one shot with no retakes.
it. Nobody will ever know.
No one will know.
Right. No pressure. Wonderful.
Under pressure.
Greetings, true believers. It's your friendly neighborhood Crispy from the Pull List podcast, and I just want to say Merry Christmas, nerds.
That was aggressive.
Stop it. I am aggressive. How dare you?
That was aggressive. You had the finger flip like washasha.
They don't know that.
The video does.
Yeah, maybe they do. That's fine. It's great. Have fun with that, Matt. All right. We ready to close this one out? 2022. Another banger. Yep.
We the best.
I don't have air horns in the soundboard. Sorry. Ready for your morning drive. Hector with traffic coming up next.
Because it's Thanksgiving and all our lanes are clogged.
Womp, womp.
That's why Clayface is here. He's the official mascot of the day after Thanksgiving.
All right. Let's make a podcast. Wait, weren't we already doing that? Oh, I don't know.
Something like that.
All right. Greetings, true believers, and welcome to episode 80 of the Pull List podcast, a bi-weekly show about comics, pop culture, and faith. It is I, Chris Poirier, and with me, as always, is the one, the only, Hector. How's it going, my dude?
Well, technically, this podcast now qualifies for AARP. So, we good.
We're getting senior discounts on this Black Friday.
We started at the bottom. Now we're having early bird specials for dinner.
Dinner at 4:30. It's good that it's getting dark outside around 5 o'clock because bedtime is very close thereafter.
I'm good.
Yeah, no, it's good because this is year 4 of this and we're closing us out. So yeah, I guess we got to jump right into it. So strap yourselves and prepare yourselves, for we've got Comic Sign for one last time in 2020.
Better put the word out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on. Better bring next song. I cut handsome checks for my expansion sets. They call me Obi-Wan. Act like you know me, son.
22. The 2020s. We lost a few years in there. This is fine. On today's episode of the Pull List, we do have a magical holiday special for you. And that is to say that it's the end of the season and we're going to go over all of 2022. Yeah, we know there's another month left, but we take a break in December and all of that so that we can catch our sanity or something. I don't know. We take a break though, because it do be hard out here in these comic book streets, but we're going to revisit the 2022s. We're going to talk a little bit about what we enjoyed throughout the year. We're going to also kind of talk about the things that we didn't, because, we got to balance it out.
Respectfully.
We're going to respectfully discuss how some things didn't go so hot this year. So yeah, this is the Pull List podcast. Stay tuned. Hey, and we're back because you didn't miss anything. Wow, I know, right? Just kidding. Audio is a great format, isn't it? I mean, I know those of you watching us on YouTube probably just got something or a transition or whatever, but here we are. 2022. Wow. It happened.
I feel like that. I feel like that's the official mascot of 2022 is the shoulder shrug, like 2022.
Yeah, the years before were definitely the dumpster fire, like going down the river in the middle of town that wasn't there a year ago. And
So
22,
a meh shoulder shrug is it's an improvement.
right? It's a step forward. But to be fair,
To be
looking
fair.
looking at 2022 and things that occurred, we started getting in earnest most of our in-person Comic-Cons and conventions back.
I'm
So
leaving for one as soon as this is over.
see, and the year's not even over, and Hector's like, I gotta go do this table thing. Um, and we're already looking at shows for next year, and next year feels the most normal this early that it has in a while. So, the dumpster fire got put out, and we're working towards improvement, and that's good. Um, we also saw a year of comic books ebbing and flowing in all kinds of strange ways that, during COVID pencils down, stuff was just slow and weird. This year, technically the slate had returned. But oops. I don't know. I'm still feeling like the overarching space is still kind of trending downward. And I hate saying that because I love it so much, but um we laid out our best of show, our magical holiday special, trademarked.biz, all that good stuff. And I struggled in some of the categories, to be honest, because I was like, what? Best series actually was a challenge for me this year. That said, it was really easy to come up with because I went back through my notes and there was only one comic that I think I talked about almost the entire year. So spoiler alert, you probably already know if you've been watching or listening to the show. So yeah, I guess I'll run the end credits and we can go. Just kidding. But yeah, so I don't know if you have any thoughts kind of on the general year of review. 2022, man. What do you think? How'd we do? How'd comics do?
I
We were
feel
here.
I feel like in a lot of ways this was the year where companies were still trying to throw spaghetti at their refrigerator and see if it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
but it felt like more so that some of the companies weren't even trying different noodles. They'd throw the noodle, it hit the fridge, fall to the floor, and just pick it up and try it again.
You're
And
like,
it's like,
oh, all right.
it's been 3 months. Let's restart this and see if anybody noticed this noodle still doesn't stick. I mean, there was definitely some interesting stuff.
What happened?
We saw some old stuff come back. We saw things like Eve return. We saw like what was it? The horror rock punk thing that I liked.
Wow, bro.
Golly, I can't remember.
Something pilots.
Homesick Pilots. Yeah.
There it is.
Homesick
did it.
Pilots. Yeah, it came to a conclusion, and it was a conclusion. It wasn't a bad.
And it ended.
It ended. It was good. I would gladly own the whole story in one fell swoop. The Me You Love in the Dark, I think, ended in 2022.
Uh-huh.
And I loved that story, but I feel like that one kind of like crossed the years and everything.
House by the Lake.
House by the Lake is still going.
It's still going, but
it's close to the end. I think there's one more issue maybe. But I feel like there was a lot of good that started that didn't stick the landing.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that in some of my letdowns.
That thing in Thor Ragnarok where Loki, he's like, I've been falling for 30 minutes or whatever. I feel like some of these comics like started off so strong and they've just been like falling for months. And when you have to wait a month at a time for a book, that's a long gap to wait for something to hit.
Yeah, and like we talked about it before we started, but like Firefly, I really enjoyed the start of. and we talked about Firefly early, and we talked about some of the specials and some of the pieces in between throughout the year, but like as a continuing ongoing series, it just meh.
Well, you had Firefly, then you had all new Firefly, and I think the same goes across the board for both.
Yeah,
Like,
and like some specials, like there were a lot of number ones this year was the other thing. Um and yeah, that's on my list, but and there was some really great things that also kind of got overshadowed by some of the longer running pieces. So like T the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin. Like I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I just don't know if it made some of my top lists for some of the things we're going to talk about today. But
well, when you're only
so
dealing with a four
honorable
issue,
mention?
when you're dealing with a 4-issue arc in the face of everything else, it's hard.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Now, but then again, one of my top books is a 4-issue arc, but it literally felt like it took 4 years for it to come out. So,
And that was still a thing this year for sure. So, I mean,
but that's one of the things we're seeing though, especially with more of the chunky adult Black Label-esque books,
right.
like Rowan and stuff like that. They're not coming out even monthly; they're coming out quarterly.
Right. Yeah, no, and we got to sit there and be like, do 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 do.
It's like I forget books existed in that 3 months. Like there's so many books that happen in that time span that I legit forget y'all even made a book.
E serial storytelling is a thing. It is either your best weapon or sometimes can definitely be that. Wait, we were doing a thing? We were doing a thing, weren't we? So yeah, I mean, 2022 was eh, eh. But
See, it's for me it's not even a like a hand raised shrug.
yeah,
It's
that takes
just
too
the
much
shoulders.
effort.
It's just the shoulders. 2022 doesn't get even the like moderate hand raise. It gets just shoulders.
All right. Well, I guess so that we can slowly find our way to the pinnacle of this mountain and bring some joy into this joyous holiday season special. See, I'm going to try to mix all the magical words in as we go today because then we'll hit everything. So 2022 comic books, we have 4 categories that we decided that we were going to address this year, and they are not arbitrary in the least. And that is to say that they are completely arbitrary. And so instead of delivering a top 10, etc., we have mixed up categories, and it feels like, the comic book Oscars, and I should have envelopes, but you know what, YouTube, you're still new here and we're getting used to it. Okay, good. But 4 categories, and we're going to start off kind of starting at the bottom, and then we're going to work our way up. And we do want to talk about what were our biggest letdown, or plural downs, best plot concept, because we read a bunch of comics that not necessarily the entire series is interesting or even good, but made us stop and go, oh, what? And some are both. Mine was more of that I have to in this category that I was like, this is really cool, and I'm gonna have to get back to it. Then we have biggest surprise, because comics do that to us occasionally, where we wouldn't have necessarily read something, or we read something and went, that was pleasantly delightful. Or just completely off the wall. And then finally, we are going to give you, in Hector and Chris's humble opinion, our best series of the year. And so, yeah, we've got some comic books to talk about. And then to wrap up the show, Hector threw out to the Love Thy Nerd community kind of the same questions of, what did you guys enjoy? And we want to get to some of that listener input because, hey, we see you. Hector and I care about you. And so making it all magical. Yep, finger guns.
Finger guns.
Pew, pew.
Finger guns.
So that'll wrap up 2022 for us. So let's jump right in. Hector, in the first category of biggest letdown, what you got?
This is gonna cover 2 books. Maybe
just 2?
2 ongoing books. Yeah, but just so if you've listened to us for any breadth of time, you've heard Chris and I talk about Daredevil and Daredevil's consistent goodness.
Yep.
I'd still stand that even though I don't think Daredevil is at its peak right now, it is an interesting book right now, but it's not at its
Yep.
peak. Even at Daredevil's lowest points, it was still good.
Yes.
And it's been the most consistently producing Marvel book.
The crossover was the only time that I started going, ew, but I try not to hold crossovers against a primary creative team because usually that's editorial being like, hey fam, we got this thing. It has to be in your book. And they're like, ugh.
And you see that, I think that was even in Nightwing where they even referenced the fact that they were forced to do it like in the discussion.
Here we are.
But for me, I think Chip Zdarsky has been consistently one of the best voices in comics in a hot minute.
Yeah.
And so the idea of him coming over to Batman, like
I was
especially,
excited.
I was so excited. And like the idea that we're going to get the best voice for Daredevil in a minute to take on the Dark Knight. I was like, fantastic. Can't wait. And we got an early taste of that with the Knight. Which again, not a bad series, but if you tell me, dude, it honestly feels like a lot of people's review of Black Adam. That if you tell me somebody that's really passionate about something and highly qualified to do it, and then they deliver something that's kind of deadpan and like, meh, like the Rock has been working on Black Adam for 15 years. You can trace the posts back; they're there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And for him to like just smolder for 2 hours and not give a passionate performance, I think was the thing. Is like I think we could have just used a little more verbal rage and Black Adam would have been a movie. Same idea with Chip Zdarsky's Batman work. Like it felt like
there it is.
It felt like it was all the framework was there, all the foundation was there, but it just felt like either stale concepts or not willing to take big steps, or it just wasn't original. Like, so the Night was literally a long, maybe 8-issue run of Bruce Wayne training to become Batman. Now, Bruce Wayne training to become Batman is not something we've, never seen before.
Right.
Like we've seen that, done for decades, from Batman Begins to like different comic books and stuff. Recently, we've seen stuff with Ducard and people he trained. And so this was literally him approaching the different training people to become who they are. And then eventually it turned into more of a also Ghostmaker Begins story as well. And it's just like, while I thought the Night was well done, I regret spending like $45 to read it.
Oof. And to be fair, I kind of like Batman. Zdarsky's Batman was close to being my choice for this category as well. But to be fair, to balance it out a little bit, the art team for this actually is really good.
Oh, fantastic.
And I feel like
which is why it's even more disappointing that the only problem is Zdarsky.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's pretty. It like the tone of it is back to where I want it. Because we took like that little short 1990s nostalgic return in art style, and I was like, nah, I'm actually okay, and this not becoming a thing. That the art was almost more gritty than what was actually being told, and yeah, I hope he figures it out, because these first couple arcs, I'm like, oh man, get through this, get to something. And you opened with dragging your mother's dead body in a coffin through the desert instead of having that in the middle.
and that's really what it was, is that I expected more from Zdarsky. And the Night wasn't disappointing, but it wasn't great. And then when he took over Batman proper, we got Failsafe, which just feels like it would have come out of like Justice League Unlimited cartoons. Or it would have felt like something, it just feels like 90s or 2000s Grant Morrison Batman more than what I would expect for groundbreaking work from Zdarsky. So I think that's the thing, high pedestal for a writer,
Yep.
and then I feel like ungroundbreaking work. And that's the thing. When you think highly of a writer, you expect big things.
Yep.
Which
And
just
it's hard to turn that off.
it is. Like I can't be like, oh, it's Zdarsky's first Batman run. Let's just give him low expectations. No. No.
Sorry, friend.
Listen, I don't care what he's drawing. I expect anything Jim Lee draws to be fantastic. You don't
Yeah.
you don't get to be Artist Alley and be Jim Lee. So
Oh. Yep.
that's
That
that was
happened.
my biggest letdown, I would say, overall.
All right. All right. Are you ready?
I
don't know
ready.
if anyone's ready. All right, look. Need you to like look at the screen and lean in a little bit. Every single event that Marvel and DC did this year should not have existed. And I'm not even remotely sorry for saying it. Cuz what the actual crap happened this year, you two? Like sometimes I expect the summer events to be like, okay, I get it. You want me to buy 47 covers of this book. But even Secret Empire, which I didn't love, I read. Nothing any of you did this year made me even want to pick it up. Because in titling, in concept, like DC's on, Dark Infinite Crises on Multiple Universe Worlds, part 47. I just couldn't care. And that's not a good look when you technically are supposed to have multiple lines that are leading into an event that makes you want to care. Almost nobody talked about the events this year. Over to the Marvel side, you gave us supposedly what's supposed to be a huge X-Men event that, for those of you that love X-Men, I'm glad somebody does. But Judgment Day did zero for me. And to be fair, I did read the first books of all these events being like, you've got one chance. And none of them made me want to pick up another.
You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow.
Yeah. What can I say? Also, copyright.
No, I'm gonna milk all these musical copyrights, man.
Oh, that's fine.
Do you remember when Jackie Kraft did the cosplay melee show?
Yes.
She said the only way that they could get privacy, because the cameras were always on them, she said the only way they could catch a breath was to start singing Disney songs.
Right, because the mouse would come and be like, no.
Because they said they had to cut footage anytime they started singing Disney songs, so they would intentionally just start singing Frozen and stuff, so they could get a breath.
Literally let it go, huh? See what I did there? Yeah, it's good. But no, man, I want to enjoy an event because technically some of the best legacy stories in comics came from events, right?
Right.
Technically a lot of stuff that we make into blockbuster comic book movies were based on event arcs, or started in an event arc. And the last few years have just made me want to bang my head on the table. But this year especially, I was just like, I'm not about it, fam. I'm not giving you $5 to $8 a book for something that's just not good.
I did it with Dark Crisis.
I'm sorry. How does that make you feel?
I just feel like outside and was potentially graphic discussion, just for if you're sensitive to this. You see in one of the Dark Crisis issues, you see Beast Boy take a bullet directly to the face at point blank range.
Ooh, okay.
And that literally was that. I was like, oh, like, geez.
Earning our broody stripes early in this one, yes.
And it's just like, I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, y'all did a thing. And like that caught me off. But like then by the next issue, that didn't matter. Well, because that's the thing. Because he's a shapeshifter, he can shape shift internal organs to where he needs to now. And it was always suspected, but never confirmed. But he was down for a significant count healing.
Sure.
So
But yeah, so
that's
I'm
like they killed the entire Justice League in one issue,
right. Set
and
this, and that was a setup. That even wasn't even in the event. That technically was a setup to the event.
then it's just like, and all the stuff that follows, it's just like, and then it's like, psych, they're not dead, they're in
Yeah,
a different
nobody's
whatever.
dead.
Yeah, and that's the thing, if you got if you got skin in the game, you win in the game. Come on, guys.
So I'm sorry, not sorry that I just have to be that there were some really great events in Rebirth. And this year just was supposed to, for me, this was supposed to be return to form because like I said, during pencils down, during COVID and everything, fine. But that means technically you probably were executing on stuff that was on the drawing board 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you delivered. um so yeah. All right. Shake it off. Get the bad stuff out. We're done. Um, let's talk about what excited us about comics for 2022. Now that we've like literally been like, wow, congratulations, comics. And so yeah, we talk the next three categories: best plot, biggest surprise, and best series. So, what made you go, okay, that was a thing, but in a good way?
Just out the gate, I think the Batman One Bad Day runs like as
Yeah.
a concept that they're going to highlight, because listen, this is the opposite of what we just talked about.
Right.
um
Right.
where instead of giving us these ongoing tied together things that you have to spend $500 to read the whole story, they're saying, hey, we're going to take one concept, apply it to each major villain in the DC catalog or in the Batman catalog, and give them a single issue. If one of them's bad, it's okay because I don't have to read four more of them.
Right.
Um, and what we've read four of these so far, right? Riddler, Two-Face, Penguin, and Mr. Freeze.
Yes, Freeze just came out.
Freeze just came out. Now here's the deal: all of them are not on the same level,
Mm-hmm.
but even the worst one of them is well written.
Yes.
Like I feel currently like Two-Face is the weakest link in the chain.
So far, I would probably agree.
And like but that's the thing, like each one of them has given us a different perspective and layer. I feel like that's fair. I feel like each one of them has given us a layer we didn't previously have. And even if it's not a canon layer that sticks out, like you and I were talking before the podcast, just of the fact that you don't like the Mr. Freeze issue because you don't like the layer it added. Uh, and because of instead of everything being motivated by Mr. Freeze's altruistic love for his wife and regret, he's really a controlling, manipulative douchewaffle that wants her to be on ice so that he can just have further control and she not be enjoyed by other people. Like,
I just realized this as you said all of that, but besides all of that being, the truth for the Mr. Freeze issue and being kind of the twist, because One Bad Day have all been kind of a unique twist on things, is that Mr. Freeze literally fridged his own wife. Right? And I'm not sorry for that analogy now that I've realized it either, because I'm pretty sure that's
intentional.
right. No, that the point of this story is the opposite. That for me, I've always enjoyed that Dr. Freeze was the one rogue in the gallery that up to date you've actually kind of felt bad for. And that supposedly his drive is that he's trying to figure out his wife, and basically crime is paying for his ability to do sciencey stuff and everything. And it's supposed to be a tragic story and everything. And this time around we get or he really is a controlling, manipulative fool. And this is just
The
the
technical
ultimate.
term is douchewaffle.
Yes. Sorry. The Polis Podcast Douchewaffle of the Year award goes to Victor Freeze in One Bad Day. Cause yeah. So this is a great example of, I didn't love this take on it. I understand the take on it, but Hector's here to talk about it.
But I just think the idea of them giving us good one shots is smart.
Yep.
And
No,
if
and
you
that's fair.
and giving us something intentionally we don't already have about that character.
Yep.
And I think they've done that well across the board. So I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to Bane. Don't let me down.
Right.
Because Bane has one of the greatest potentials of being a letdown. Bane and Hush for me are like, if you screw this up, I'm sad at you.
Right.
But so, and then my runner-up concept was I think it was Human Target. I think that's what I said.
Yep.
Yeah, was Human Target. Just because uh, it's a book that's long been dead. It's a TV show that's long been canceled. Um, and bringing it back in current times with a gritty noir take. It's a good idea.
Tom King has those occasionally.
He does, and
Sometimes.
putting them against like each issue is a different uh special guest of the week type thing, kind of a
Right.
Brave and the Bold vibe. Gritty romance across the board, knowing that your character's dying out the gate. I just think it was a good concept. And realistically, it's not going to be for everybody. So there's people that are going to be bored to tears reading this, but I think it's visually and story wise, it's one of the best concepts of the year in terms of like, this is just well done.
Excuse me. I am sorry.
Bless you. Um, and but yeah, I just think it's one of the best concepts, and I find between this and Nightwing, this is the one I take the most pictures of, or I screenshot the most of, like when I'm reading it, just because the writing is that good. So those are my best concepts of the year. I think the two of those
Sure.
across the board of something fresh.
I think I had trouble wrapping my head around best concept because I want to put stuff that I just like in my, well, it's the best series, but that's not always true, right?
Mm-mm.
So Hector broke my very simplistic approach and made me think about this. And so both of my books are books that have been on my list throughout the year, but are not ones that I've visited since I've mentioned them, because I put them on my list because I read the first issue and went, okay, I'm here. Let's go. And so that first one is Slumber. If you remember Slumber from Image, is like super mature, kind of ultra violent, but it's Inception, but more complicated. That it's about the basically the people that can navigate dreams and execute like the nightmares and dreams and stuff.
Because Inception was a little too simple.
Yeah. Well, to make it more complicated, it still has the tied things of like, if you die in the dream, you die in the dream type thing. But it's technically about this organization of, like nightmare hunters. Like we can make stuff go away. And it unfolds into this entire thing of, well, there's a bad actor that's been trapped in dreams for a while that is now hunting the hunters kind of thing. Um, and I'm like, in terms of concepts, that I picked up a comic and went, what the actual what? Yeah. And I'm gonna finish this in trade for me because I've just missed a bunch of issues and everything. But as a setup, I'm like, yep. I'm tracking. It's a cool idea of the monster under your bed literally can get knocked out in a dream by dream assassins. Okay, that's dope. But there's more to it. There's lots of that onion to peel back, and so I'm here for. I think we've established I'm the weird reader. Maybe. um some of my stuff makes people go, what? So Slumber was definitely one of mine, but I had a runner up in this category too, and that's because Grimm, that I've mentioned a few times, of the Reaper that loses their scythe and ends up back in the real world, but it's also dealing with they're the only Reaper that doesn't know how they died, and so there's the unpacking of that. um and everything going on there. And also, our friend Rico colors it. So it's this where I have to put like paid sponsor, like under my post kind of thing, except he didn't pay us. We just like Rico. Um,
Fair.
and it's a pretty book and all that, but I like this concept of there are multiple Reapers. Um, and there are things that tie them to death, but also tie them to the real world. And this entire journey is kind of working out that relationship and the mystery of that one Reaper, of why she doesn't know who she is. We find out who she is, and we've mentioned it in a previous episode, so I won't revisit it here. So if you're just listening to, our pulls of our picks of the year, then I didn't spoil it for you. Congrats. So Slumber and Grim kind of make my plot concept of the year category for this. So biggest surprise. See, it was shocking, surprising, maybe. No, fine.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, what was that surprise for you this year, Hector?
I'm gonna add a runner up that's not on the list. Just heads up.
How dare you
Fight me. So, I'll say, and I like to dabble a little in the mangas.
He does. It's a true story.
In the manga, Spy Family for me, or Spy X Family. I've never actually known what the proper way to say that out loud was.
I think we lost all of our credibility at this point, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, cool. Because I always called it Spy Family.
Yeah.
But I did not see that story coming, and I did not see Caring, and it did it.
Yeah,
like-
because of you talking about it, I ended up going and watching the entire first season, not reading. I'm probably going to read it now too, but I watched the entire first season in a sitting.
Well, and I haven't heard the English version of it. I've only heard the
It's good.
Japanese. Okay, and that's the thing.
It's actually one of those that is well done simulcast. I don't hate it.
Okay. But and it's just one of those things that I if you would have told me I would have picked up a new manga this year, it wouldn't have been that. And that and I got into it because my kids liked it, and I'm really grateful. And it just straight up was a surprise to me of its existence and how good it was. And that I bought all the manga that followed after the show, and staying on that. But it's also a good surprise in that it's fresh. You're still in single digits on the books.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to catch up, you got time. So that was a good surprise for me. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add the Red Hood and the Outlaws on Webtoon.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading Webtoon for a minute because of Lore Olympus, which, by the way, it won a Harvey Award for the best digital content. For comics. Lore Olympus did, not Red Hood.
That's not confusing.
Yeah, sorry. But if you would have told me that we were getting DC proper books on Webtoons, I would have been like, no, that's not how that works. But not only is it how it works, it's really well done in the concept of it's one of my favorite things of the week. And because I get Red Hood on a weekly basis and it comes to me free, and I can read that. And again, I'm a picture taker, screenshotter, memer when it comes to a lot of stuff that I like. And I end up Red Hood and the Outlaws is right there with Nightwing and Human Target as far as I want to hold on to this content. And just on a digital note of just the actual response to it, for the 17 issues that exist on Webtoons for Red Hood and the Outlaws, these numbers might moderately impress you. It has 2.9 million views.
Whoa. That's based on how many. Let's just say they're not publishing that many anything in print.
Right. It has 2.9 million views. 263,000 people that have downloaded them.
That would be closer to a publication number, but definitely nowhere near that many people actually pull a thing.
And its rating is a 9.51. Comparatively,
so it doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck. And I was telling you a little bit of the plot, but the plot starts out of the Outlaws. And by the way, I will die on this hill any given day. Bizarro, Artemis, and Red Hood are the best version of the Outlaws because they are the echo of the DC proper trinity. You've got a failed Superman, a failed Wonder Woman, and a failed Batman. And the fact that since the DC proper book of Red Hood and the Outlaws died, Artemis has been further disgraced,
Mm.
which makes her even more of the black sheep. But the concept of this is legitimately that they screw up a mission, and the Justice League comes to kick him in the spiritual cojones, and
Oh,
that T-shirt
that
will
would
be
be
available.
that would be such a good episode name, but I'm not doing it.
The T-shirt will be available immediately after.
Yes, merchandising.
Merchandising. But the Justice League comes to, like, tell them, y'all suck, stop it. But instead,
Stop.
well, that's what it comes down to. It's like, y'all suck, stop. But then, and like, Jason calls Batman's bluff, and so they end up giving them the Justice League. Like, the DC Trinity leaves the planet and says, "Hey, the Justice League is yours. The Watchtower, the resources, everything else. You're the Justice League. Prove us you don't suck."
Don't screw it up.
And literally, the current issue, they ended up in hell. So, yeah, it's good. It's heartwarming. The art, now, here, my only negative. If you've read webtoons or you're familiar with a lot of the current, like, anime art style where all the boys are extremely pretty boys, like all that kind of vibe, that transcends this sometimes, and you get a very, like, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure version of Jason at some point.
Okay.
Of just,
yeah.
like, pose.
Got
Like
it.
that. It's like, that's my only negative, but it's great. That's my other big surprise.
All right. Surprises. Some of you are going to hate me. Because my surprise of the year was the latest Fantastic Four #1. Which Hector and I fought over for poll of that week in the last episode. And the reason that's my surprise is kind of along the lines of what I mentioned during the event issue, but different, in that the Fantastic Four and the X-Men had like 47 different starts this year. It feels that way, at least. I swear Fantastic Four, this might have been the third #1 this year alone in trying to restart that arc.
Especially if you count new Fantastic Four as well.
Right. And so, sorry, Todd, I just didn't love it until now. Todd loves the Fantastic Four, and we love you, Todd, because you fill in when Chris can't be here. But
one of the many reasons we love you.
Right. But this surprised me because I picked it up and it didn't suck. And not only did it not suck, it's not like, oh, it surprised me just because it was mediocre. It was really good. I like Ben Grimm stories. I like Ben, even though the entire world knows who he is, still gets the, you're a big rock monster. And people just don't know what to do with that. And also his marriage is just it's very sweet. It's a cool look. I have always loved his relationship, because she's blind is kind of the part to it. And so there's this juxtaposition, big word, of she knows who and what he is and loves him anyway, but she also can't see him all the time. So Ben's also super insecure about that relationship because of that. But they're like rock star as a couple. And this book just killed it and made you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And for me, Fantastic Four is supposed to feel that way. The first family of Marvel always has these stories that ground you in reality, but also have these extra crazy things going on in them. So I hope they don't screw this up going forward, is where I'm at. But that was the start. And it surprised me because, frankly, Marvel's not handled the Fantastic Four well in a while. So I'm here for this to continue to surprise me, and I want it to be one of my favorite series next year. So we will see.
And if they can write each character with the depth they wrote these characters,
right,
I'm here for it. Like that, if each issue stays in this general ballpark, I will pick this up every month.
Right. Yeah, no, same for sure. So that was my surprise. And now the moment that maybe just Hector and I have been waiting for, and a handful of other people.
I was
But
about to say, I don't think everybody's waiting for this.
um, but if you want to know,
Oh,
and of course, the reality is, if you've been listening to us, you probably have an idea what's going to be on this list. But best series, we didn't do like a best standalone book this year, and I kind of dig that because series is probably more fair because it's something that you more consistently have picked up and enjoyed. So Hector, what was the thing that made you keep going back and picking it up, and why?
dude, Nightwing was my book of the year, and I don't obviously if you've listened to this at all, that's not a surprise. And here's the deal: I don't even love Nightwing. Like I don't even love Nightwing. Like it's like I've got, let's say, 40 Red Hood figures and one Nightwing. So it's like,
Yeah, so being straight-laced Dick Grayson does not seem to be your wheelhouse. No.
no, it's not. I've got two now because I've got that. If I follow the camera finger right there, boop. I've got the Nightwing that's on the Gotham Knight statue. But like,
He came with the set.
he came with the set because you know why I bought that? Because of Jason Todd.
Yeah, right.
But like legitimately, outside of the Fear State tie-ins, which I think is that last year at this point? I can't remember.
I'm losing track, but I feel like it probably was.
Who knows?
I was looking back through some of our notes. I think it was either very early this year or late last year.
Yeah. Outside of the couple Fear State tie-ins, Fear State tie-ins, Nightwing has consistently been one of the best books of all companies right now. And it gave us the hope and the like humanity that Batman lacks and that any Bat story lacks, honestly. It gave us genuine relationships with Barbara Gordon, who even in this storyline referenced her own fridging, and which was great. It gave us Nightwing having a sister, a half sister by Tony Zuko, which is its own crazy bananas thing. But she's also really cool, and I enjoyed her. It gave us the villain Heartless, which is genuinely terrifying. And which is kind of weird though, because he plays out a similar trait of one of the villains in the new Azrael story, and I feel like editorial should have caught that and done something different.
Womp
Womp. But Nightwing did it first. It gave us Blockbuster, and like actually the death of Blockbuster as well. Again, which we've seen in Nightwing stories before, but he's like legit back now. But it's been steadily developed to the best art, the best humanity, just the sweetest moments. It's also been one of the best for giving love and reverence and references to previous creators and storylines as well. Like they've just been really, really dope on the development. So Tom Taylor's been killing it with that. And at the last episode, we talked about it. Like I was like deeply concerned because the episode ended with Rick Grayson showing up.
Right.
And then the internet right after that exploded because a page of this issue got out of the newest one. So do you know what the whole deal is? Okay.
No, I've been Nightwing isn't on my list except for the fact that apparently I need to read it because you keep telling me to. Todd keeps telling me to. Other people keep telling me to. And look, I don't give in to peer pressure, but fine, I'll do it this time.
Just make sure you start with Leaping into the Light and just go from there.
Yep.
So Rick Grayson shows up in the middle of Barbara and him having a moment, and it's a whole weird thing. And Nightwing's like, "What the actual crap is happening?" And he's like, "You can't be like, what's going on?" And then he poofs and turns into 90s Nightwing with the ponytail and the mullet.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and the deep V-neck.
In the deep V-neck.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, what is happening?" He's like, and then he poofs one more time. and he's a fifth dimensional imp like Batmite.
Okay, I'm okay with this. That
And he's
thank God.
and then he's like, "Oh, I have a fifth dimensional imp." And he's called Nightmite. And
Like dead serious, not kidding.
dead serious, not kidding. And he hates it. He hates it so much. So Nightwing is like straight up upset that he's got a fifth dimensional imp.
That's so good. That
And,
that would have been a surprise for me. But okay.
and he's like, you know what? He goes on. He's like, this creative team has been killing it all year, and
Right.
but he says that, and he's like, let's go ahead and give the fans no. And then Barbara shows up. She's like, you have an imp, and freaks out about it, and she just thinks it's great. And he's like, you know what? We've really appreciated you, but the page that got everybody upset. Like I literally saw this on Twitter that Nightwing was trending on Twitter, which is super rare, because she said I always shipped him with Starfire, but whatever. And he says that to Barbara's face, and so like the shipping community of the internet was very upset. And by the way, if you don't know this and you're not a 12-year-old person, shipping is when you feel very passionately about what relationships people should be in because you can't control your own.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. But then he proceeds. He's like, you know what? Your story, I was like, Barbara, I've appreciated your story and this, how this has gone, but there needs to be more progression. So he poofs, and the entire Bat family is around them, and like a wedding is happening.
Yo.
And he's like, what? No. And Barbara's like, no. And he's like, not yet. She's like, not yet. He's like, later. But then it's not just an image. Like the whole Bat family is literally there, and Batman starts to break on him for like what the actual crap. He's like, he poofs him back. He poofs Barbara back. But this Nightmite showed up because there's a little girl who is in danger with some demon-y stuff, and he needs Nightwing to save her. Because how I mentioned that Blockbuster died, Blockbuster had previously made a pact with a demon and then renegotiated his mortgage with that pact to go to his firstborn child. And so he
nailed it.
So he purposely had a child just to take his demon pact. And so now that that he's dead, demons are coming for this little girl. And then Nightmite needed her to save. So fun stuff. But it's been the best book, like consistently, like out of let's say 12 issues, 9 of them have been complete bangers. And the 3 that weren't the best were still good. And I'll add for my runner-up as Catwoman Lonely City.
Which was delightful.
Which was delightful. And my only reason for not putting it as the best is 1, quantity. It was only 4 issues. And 2, waiting 3 months at a time. I literally forgot about it.
Yeah, that one was hard to keep track of because of that. That was definitely one of those that's like, okay, is it dead? Is it what's happening?
Is it canceled? It's that kind of thing. And I only found the 4th issue on the old issues shelf at my store. Like I didn't even notice it happened. That story was great. And honestly, my favorite thing is the way they did Ivy in that story was my favorite. And if I were to throw a third runner up, it would be the Poison Ivy series.
Yeah, we talked about that last episode. So
yeah, and that would have been my third runner up. But yeah, good.
All right. Building suspense. Did it work? I guess it didn't. That's fine. All right. So my best series of the year should come as absolutely no surprise to anyone, but 7 Secrets, which I'm pretty sure did technically start last year, but that's fine because it completed this year and it ran most of the year into its completion. And this Boom Studio book has just had me since the beginning, like super vibrant art, this really creative story of all these pairs of people that are, there's one person that carries a secret and there are 7. And then there's a protector of the person of the case. And there's this all out secret society war that unfolds during it. And we talked about the conclusion a few episodes ago about there's just some neat twists and turns throughout the story. It's very visceral in like this secret society's war basically engulfs the world by the middle of this story, and the world's just kind of like, okay. um so it's fun, but it does have some great twists in it and makes you kind of think about some things along the journey. And I think that if that's not the point of comics and serial storytelling, I'm not sure what is. So for me, it just encapsulated so much of what I want out of comics, which is either super out there or at the same time like super crazy out there story, but also really grounded, because this story was about relationships, because there were some very estranged ones throughout the entire thing. And then when you find out kind of the pinnacle of the story, you sit there and go, oh, oh. And so you understand some choices that people made that originally didn't seem to make sense or were counterintuitive. And and because the main character goes through that entire arc of figuring that out themselves. So this book was also consistent through and through, because we just talked about, books that kind of ebbed and flowed. This one I don't think took much of a break anywhere during its run. So you should be able to pick up.
And is this also Tom Taylor?
Yes, right? Sorry, I have to pull, but I'm pretty sure, because that was the other thing, is Tom's just been writing lots of really good stuff, right? And I think that's one of the many reasons. Yeah, Tom Taylor.
So our 2 books of the year
are both Taylor.
Are both Tom Taylor.
And once again, because this happens every single year, Hector and I did not talk about this in advance.
We love each other, but not enough to have conversations that aren't on this podcast.
Ouch.
I don't see you calling me anytime.
Oh. All right, we'll have to finish this off air. How dare you? How dare you, sir? Oh. But yeah, Tom Taylor definitely nailing it this year, clearly. And then my runner-up, and it just finished, but it's another one of those. It ran short, but Scott Snyder's Dark Spaces Wildfire, which like none of us knew we were even getting this year, that we were getting a Scott Snyder book. Just 5 issues, front to back, great story. So for me, I like a series that is that clean, that it's like, here's the thing, here's the idea, I get it, it's executed, it had turns in it, and it's only 5 issues.
That was the Me Love in the Dark. That's how I felt about that.
So yeah, if you're looking for something that's a really good isolated story and isn't that long, Dark Spaces Wildfire. If you're looking for that longer burn, yeah, there you go. 7 Secrets ended up being kind of my long-term thing here. And like TMNT Ronin, like, is maybe my 3rd runner-up, because I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was wild, but some of this other stuff just kind of ratcheted above. So I guess even though we said there was a lot of meh this year, there were some diamonds in the rough, but most of them were either isolated books or short series. And that's kind of what happened for us. So yeah, a meh year turned into a pretty good one by the end.
One shoulder up, one hand
up. So Hector, to kind of close out the 2022 season and everything, how about you run through, because you posted to the community the question of, what did you guys kind of dig? So kind of walk us through what our lovely listeners had to say.
And to be fair, I didn't post this until like neck deep into Thanksgiving. So if you missed on the opportunity to do this,
Womp womp.
my bad. So Kevin Conley, he gave us his top 10. So let's run through Kevin's top 10. He had Shang-Chi.
All 10.
We're going to do it. Let's do it. Shang-Chi, Monkey Prince, which I've heard that one consistently as well.
Yes.
That Monkey Prince is worth a read.
Yeah, the distaste of Marvel in my mouth from this year is why basically some of the books on his list, I was like, I guess I'll go back because I wasn't giving you my money this year.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
Batman One Bad Day, which we've spoken of.
Yep, for sure.
World's Finest, which I've heard from him and Todd.
Yeah, a few people told us that supposedly we need to be reading World's Finest. And I mean, Mark Waid is super talented, and I probably just frankly slept on this one.
Well, there's a taste, like an aftertaste to World's Finest right now,
That's
just
fair.
because we've had so many Batman Superman things in a minute, that it's weird. The Flash, which kind of surprised me, you weren't about that life right now.
I almost didn't read it this year because after um the team changed, it just didn't hit the same for me anymore. And I found it really hard to stay in it, which depresses me because Barry Allen is my boy. That's one of my favorite characters. And so this is another I might have to figure out where it finds its legs again. Because I got really turned off during the transition of teams on this one, because it was handled so well for so long, and then I read the first arc and went, "What happened?"
Yeah, and that's team changes are hard.
Yep,
Um, Junkyard Joe, which is a robot soldier story. GI Joe, the Saturday Morning Adventures, and you know what? GI Joe still hits real hard for some folks.
it's true,
Our friends Candace and Russell still do like full GI Joe stuff all the time.
and they're great.
Yeah,
And there was an RPG of that this year, so clearly GI Joe's getting them dollars this year.
right. Um, Captain America: Symbol of Truth and Captain America: Sentinel of Liberty. So you get all three versions of Cap in those. She-Hulk was real close on my list too. But because we don't have a solid conclusion to anything, I didn't put it on there yet. But and he also put an honorable mention for Strange Academy, which I know hits for you as
Yeah,
well.
Strange Academy almost made my list for series this year as well, but it kind of trailed off. That was one of those that, and here's the thing, and I'll say this about Strange Academy is it was only supposed to be the limited. And then it was so well received that they extended it into an ongoing. And at first I was super excited. And about a 3/4 of the way into where we are today, I went, maybe this should have stayed a limited. Because I think the art is still great. I still love the concept, but I felt like we were starting to lose the thread of the stories that they were telling and them having relevance for me. But it still was a super fun journey. Like Hogwarts for the magical users and mutants of the Marvel universe. Yes, please.
Yeah. Todd mentioned the Supergirl mini, which he also put me on, which is like literally the no, you can't see it, but it's like my lock screen on my phone. Oh, yeah, you can't see that.
Yeah, you can't
Um,
see that.
but it was a good storytelling piece.
And that's
So
Tom King, right?
yeah, it's Tom King, and it was an 8 girl story. The graphic pulls out really well, so pick up the graphic if you're interested. Do a power bomb he mentioned, which I'm into that as well, but as you mentioned earlier, I missed some issues, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna need to pick it up and trade. I can't get that one on my shelf, and I was already 3 issues deep by the time I wanted to put it on my list. Missing. He also mentioned Fantastic, which Fantastic Four for him, and there was that Alex Ross piece
Mm-hmm.
that came from that. That was really good. Um, the Massiverse. The Radiant Black, Rogue Sun, the Dead Lucky. Those have been some that have pulled together really well. Todd also mentions the One More Days and the Monkey Prince. Again, we're hitting more. Duo from Milestone, he said was good. Twig, which I just
I
saw them.
mentioned, yeah, I mentioned it when it started. It's one I'm probably going to end up getting in trade. It is beautiful. And the first issue is pretty good, but that was another that just keeping it consistently was something I had difficulty with as well. So some of that's also just been getting comics, quick bullet point. It's been a thing this year. Between shipping and just distribution issues. So I guess we're back to normal.
Yep. Um, but he also mentioned Human Target, Defenders Beyond, Step by Bloody Step. But he does land firmly that Supergirl is his book of the year. And I could totally see that. And so that is a thing. And then Dave Mattingly said that one of his favorite things was the relaunch of Moon Knight.
Started
And
great.
started
And
great.
everyone's probably like, why wasn't it on your list? Well, that's why.
But specifically he mentions Hunter's Moon, which I think Hunter's Moon was a fantastic addition as a
Yes.
character.
Yep.
Zodiac as a villain, and the
And the
Midnight Mission.
Midnight Mission returning. Yeah.
Yeah, the way it did as a sentient being and stuff was really pretty dope. And I just thought it was neat. So those are some of the feedback we got from the community as well. But
And there's some good stuff there, and it demonstrates what we've always said, because I say it usually in copy and in the middle of our episodes of, we probably missed something or you just don't agree with us, and that's fine. And that's part of the joy of comics and everything, is that everyone has slightly different tastes, but it's kind of neat when you see similar things come up over and over again, because it means that those creative teams are really putting out something that everyone found something in.
And the fact that Tom Taylor was both of our books of the year
and telling completely different stories. Like, let's even go there for like just a second, is that mine was like this super wild fantasy dystopian future type thing, and then Nightwing.
He also threw in, Deceased in this mix too, but that one didn't make my list. But
right, so crazy stuff there. All right, Hector, final thoughts on 2022.
I'm not looking forward to the events of next year.
Aw.
The one event that's announced for DC.
Oh yeah, no. Basically, yeah, the Lazarus Planet thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're doing exactly what they did with Rebirth, and there's kind of like a new timeline and everything. So I get the feeling it's a potential universal reboot, but they haven't really said, and it is early, but yeah, it's hard to get excited when someone has to explain their continuity with really long timeline graphics. The whole thing that DC had said a few years ago of, let's just declare everything continuity, but in different universes. I kind of want you to go back there, DC. Tell short stories that are neat, interesting. They're all valid, but we just acknowledge that there's a multiverse present. Like Dark Metal kind of did a good job of almost like making that full continuity, and did in many ways, and wasn't super painful. But this Dark Crises on Infinite Planet Earths and Lazarus whatevers does kind of make my head hurt.
I'm also looking forward to, I want some more Yara Floor. Where the crap are you? Like there's some Amazon Attack stuff and everything, but like, and she had a limited run, but I don't think they've used her potential. And also like we're at the point where in what feels like almost every story where Renee has replaced Jim, like Renee Montoya is now the head honcho over Jim Gordon. Like in Gotham Knights, she's the commissioner, or she's the main cop or whatever. But like, that in GCPD or whatever now, Blue Line, she's the commissioner. It's just like we've arrived at that place, and I want Renee Montoya to have good things in life, but I want what I want. I want her back in a mask. But 2023, we'll see. There's nothing like dramatically on my radar, but here's hoping.
Yeah, I think that's the spot. Here's hoping. So that is going to do it for us here at the Pull List Podcast. Episode 80, end of 2022, is now in the books and in your ears and in your eyeballs. It's true. We're on the YouTubes, so smash like and subscribe. But we couldn't possibly do this alone. As many of you know, we take this epic journey of podcasts and fandom with lots of other amazing podcasts over on the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. So you can check all those shows out over at lovethynerd.com for more info, previous episodes, or maybe find yourself a little something new this holiday season to add to your routine. But ultimately, end of the day, Hector and I just want to thank you for choosing us as your primary comic book knowledge factory on a near weekly basis. We did pretty good this year. I got busy a few places. Todd jumped right in and covered us down. So we had us a solid year, and man, we just want to thank all of you for that. So don't leave us hanging. Rate, review the show on your favorite podcasting app of choice. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. Now, as I mentioned, over there on the YouTubes. So just help some brothers out, and share the love of comics with someone that you love this season. So thanks for listening. And remember, kids, read more comics.
Read more comics.
See you in 2023. Wink.
Gang, gang.
I'm gonna take all 7 continents